It's been a while, 10 months to be exact. The goal for this devlog was to have a fully playable area, and even though I made decent progress, I didn't quite get there yet. But let's go through the playable area or tutorial area as it is now and talk about the improvements and new features along the way. After the last devlog, the game had lots of issues and I didn't want to build on top of broken fundamentals. But man, a lot of stuff broke even without me touching it. Just updating my Unreal version broke the landscape, for example, and constantly crashed, so I couldn't fix it. Not gonna lie though, I could have made a devlog classic, my game is broken, it's so over type of video, but let's talk about the environment later. So when we start the game, the first noticeable change when we compare it to the old start menu is that I redesigned the UI and the background. But before I pull up Figma, which is like a digital sketchbook, let's first click on load game to also have a look at the HUD and the pause menu. I tried keeping the UI simple but also give it character with small details. So I started sketching in Figma and came up with these mockups for the pause menu and the HUD, as well as these icons and symbols. The idea was to have a modern UI with these ancient symbols and icons. So if we compare the pause menu with the old one, which to be fair wasn't designed at all, I think it looks really cool. The item slots with the rounded corners have the health or durability indicator wrapped around, and everything is organized in its own category, so you don't have one big mess of an inventory. The main navbar as well as the inventory navbar navigate through all the different pages, and it's also usable with a controller. So when I have a controller plugged in and use it, it automatically detects that, changes the icons, and I can navigate from my controller. The same also works with the HUD. And speaking of HUD, like I said, it also adjusts the icons to the respective input device, but let me explain what we are even looking at here. Starting top left. Top left is the player status with health, temperature, food saturation, and monster team. Food saturation system, this is a new feature. Food saturation decreases over time, and when you eat, it fills up. And when it's full, you cannot eat for healing, but you would need to use potions instead. Temperature system, also a new feature, and it's directly inside the player health bar, which looks a bit goofy. For this example, let's quickly leave the tutorial area and let's go to the test map. Depending on the environment you are in, it influences your gameplay. Like if it's extremely hot, you start burning and get damaged, and the same applies if it's extremely cold. Okay, back to the tutorial area. Top right is the minimap, which I didn't touch at all. Bottom right are the quick slots. The single slot is the item quick slot for heals, for example. The 3 slots below it are weapon quick slots, which you can switch between weapons. The item quick slot is also a new feature, which lets you set a predefined item to consume instead of using the pause menu, even though that would not be an issue because the game pauses while in pause menu. I like it this way more because it does not interrupt gameplay. Bottom middle is not visible until we actually start sprinting, climbing, or flying on our own. Then you can see the energy bar. And energy is also a new feature. So when sprinting, climbing, when flying yourself, it drains your energy, and when not moving, it regenerates it. And bottom left is nothing until you press L1, LB, or this symbol on PC, which shows all the abilities of your monsters that are currently in your team. And besides visual rework, I also completely rewrote the UI, but I'll spare you with the details. It's not that I don't want to talk about technical stuff, but as you can see from my last video, people really don't like technical talk, it seems. Now we're at the start point, and you can see that I expect the player to go, well, straight forward. And if we do that, we'll see 2 points of interest. This weird structure with barrels and the weapons on top, and the obelisk. And maybe some notice this weird mushroom rock, which seems oddly suspicious. If we go first to the weird structure on the right, it's basically there to show the player multiple things. How to climb so they can reach the weapons on top. When you pick up the equipment on top, you obviously want to equip it, so we open the pause menu and do that. And with our newly acquired equipment, we go back down and either curious players or just game veterans would probably also try destroying these barrels, which are indeed destroyable props. So if you're looking closely, here were multiple things that either got improved or are new features. The vaulting and climbing got improved, not only technically, but also visually. Trust me. Now you can go up to a wall, attach, detach, climb up until it detects that you can climb up. You can also climb all sorts of other surfaces, but it's far from done, to be honest, and still needs a lot of improvement. Vaulting was actually really simple and straightforward to implement, which is always really nice. And currently there are two types of vaults, one where you stand on it and one where you fully vault over the object. Actually, there's another one if it's like head height or slightly above head, then you climb up to stand on it. Then there was the equipment, so picking it up, equipping it, and actually using it in game got reworked as well, because not only the player can carry equipment, but also monsters and other NPCs. So to make it more modular, so replace all player references with gameplay tags and interfaces, so other actors can use them as well. Destroyable or interactable props. Some environment props are destroyable, like these barrels, by either hitting or throwing them. And there are also rock versions, which we'll see later in the video. From here, the player has basically one main point of interest left, which is the obelisk right in front of him. The obelisk is a mysterious structure in the game related to the story. There are unknown structures which usually look like this, but something in the story happened which makes them throb with this corrupted aura. The corruption can be removed, however, and obelisks can be cleared of it, which then gives you additional information about the story, but almost more importantly, they become warp points, so you can teleport. To clear a obelisk, you have to either solve a puzzle, defeat a strong enemy, or directly attack the obelisk, which however aggroes nearby corrupted monsters. And after clearing the obelisk, you have multiple secondary points of interest. Either go that way to battle, or this way for more loot. We can also go straight down the path to the blacksmith and a chest, or you could go up the mountain. Let's first battle and break down combat improvements, then visit the blacksmith and open the chest. When we slow down the clip there of the melee attack, and again compare it to the last devlog, there are multiple things improved. Like when having an enemy in range, you rotate and slightly move towards the enemy. The sword combat animations and hit impact VFX also improved, and I also created a crit hit impact VFX, but more to that later. Also, I'm showing the crash from the old clip on purpose because I completely rewrote combat, and to fix this bug specifically, I just removed all the logic from tick and just manually arranged when the hit collisions should spawn and detect enemies with enemy notifies. And now it does not crash anymore, which is great. Enemies now also can get staggered or disrupted if they get hit a certain amount of time, which cancels their attack and stuns them for a little. And when you're getting hit, you now flash red and have like a hit animation. But for melee combat, I'm still missing animations for all the other weapons. I did some two-hand animations, but they're also pretty sloppy. Also charge attack animations. Charge attacks are currently just normal attack animations, but well, charged or slowed. The logic, however, is already in place. I would just need to replace the animations with some cool charge attacks, like a spin, jump attack, or a slash. And that slash I actually had in the previous devlog, but I removed it for now. But if you are good at modeling, animation, VFX, SFX, and so on, and are interested on working on Semko, send me an email or a message on X or Discord with your portfolio, past relevant experience if you have any, and your quote. Thank you. I mentioned crit earlier. That's because I implemented a bonus system. It's very straightforward. If your weapon or yourself, via a potion, for example, have a bonus chance, like lifesteal, crit, pierce, or whatever, it calculates on every hit if it should apply that bonus. These bonuses can be attached at the blacksmith to equipment by using ores, which can be dropped from breaking rocks, or you can also directly drop equipment with 0 or more ores attached. And weapons currently have the following bonuses: lifesteal, crit and pierce, and armor has movement speed, attack speed, health regeneration, tenacity, and slower energy drain. But there will also be special trait armor with special effects, like for example a frog armor, which would make you jump a bit higher, for example. And here are some of the others I came up with. This one I mentioned in the last devlog, which is the element system. So if you have a water sword or a water monster, it increases your damage by 50% against fire enemies, as well as, depending on the element of course, would also apply a status effect. In this case, it would apply the status effect wet, which makes the enemy slower. And it could also increase electricity damage, but I didn't get that far yet. Or like in this example, if you attack an enemy that is weak against fire, they start burning and get damaged every couple of seconds from that fire. And the last thing for combat from the player's perspective is focus/defend. Focusing enemies was already a thing in the last devlog. The only thing I adjusted was that when you hold focus and there's a enemy range, it focuses it and turns the camera towards it. Defending was kinda a thing in the last devlog, but just really sloppy implemented. And to make it work, I had to make sure to only be able to defend when you have 1, a shield equipped, and 2, if the target is actually facing the direction where the hit came from. As you might have noticed from that slide animation, when you successfully defend, the enemy gets staggered. So it gives you an opening window for counterattacking, and the same applies for parrying. The difference being that to parry, you would have to press defend around the moment you would get hit. And that also staggers the enemy just for longer and disarms them. But only the staggering part is currently implemented. The disarmament will be implemented in the future sometime. Lastly, I updated the animations for focusing as well as the impact VFX when successfully defending a hit. Okay, but in combat there is not only the player involved, so I also had to improve the enemy AI. Before, the enemy AI would just walk to point X, usually where the player is, and then just do a attack task. But that obviously does not feel good, so I did multiple things, like create a ticket system, make it aware of environment, and adjusted the behavior tree and much more. And with all that combined, the enemy, as you can see, is not just spamming attack as soon as it reaches one point, but it waits, positions itself, and if they fight in a group, they take turns. Another thing with AI that I didn't get to work on was group/team behavior and friendly team AI, but stay tuned for that and all the other stuff that I did not yet implement for future videos. And to finish up the combat topic, the bow is now behaving much more like an actual bow, where the whole process of unholstering it and shooting an arrow is looking much better than in the previous devlog, as well as the arrow now has a proper trajectory and drop off and a nice trail VFX while it flies. Now let's get to the blacksmith, but before, let's just climb up this rock here where we find this chest, and when you press E or the left face button on your controller, you can open this chest, which then drops something. In this case, we got an apple and a mushroom. Yay. But now to the blacksmith. NPCs also improved, which were a bit buggy before, but now it all works pretty nicely. I also reworked the UI of the blacksmith. I also wanted to work on merchants and quest NPCs, but I didn't get to that. But again, all these not implemented features will be featured in a future video. From the blacksmith, you would probably go further back here, because there will be another point of interest here, which is placed here on purpose, because from here you can look around and you will have these rocks on your left and the trees and monsters on the right. So you would again choose to go in either direction because you're free to explore. But I assume though that most players would go to the rocks because they look like they hide something. And you're right, you can indeed break them and there will be something hidden behind them. These rocks are actually just this small rock, but scaled up. But as you can see, the small rock looks much more satisfying to break than the bigger ones, because the VFX does not really scale when scaling the actor. So that's also something I need to figure out. And yeah, this would be the main route in the tutorial area if you just go from one point of interest to another. But I assume most players will explore further, go on the mountain, find another chest, then look down and locate something on the suspicious mushroom rock from the beginning and try to fly over there or something like that. Fight the other monsters on the other end. And the last small gameplay features that I added are a money system. You can now earn gold. Currently though, monsters don't drop physical gold, it just gets added to your balance after defeating them. But I do have a test gold object, which is this flower, because I don't have a mesh. And if you overlap it, you can see top left the amount it added to your gold. Then there's a rank system, same with gold, but intentional. When defeating an enemy, you gain rank directly, there's no drop, which is of relevance in this game to determine what duelists you are allowed to battle. And lastly, the save system got improved. It saves just like it did before, your equipment, monster team, and all the other attributes. But I improved the code under the hood, so now it's more elegant and more performant code. And now we're finally done with gameplay. Let's talk about the environment. And as I teasered at the beginning, my landscape suddenly broke when I updated Unreal a couple months ago. And as you saw, I did rebuild it, but only the tutorial area we just went through. But I was quite demotivating, and because of all the other stuff that I worked on and had to fix, I didn't get a lot of things done when it comes to environment, like overhauling the foliage and other props. I wanted to have grass cutting / burning with weapons or abilities, cutting trees and burning them. I wanted to make a new model for Semko, a couple new enemy models, duelists and NPCs. I also wanted to improve all the VFX and add new VFX for elements and temperature and other stuff. And I wanted new and improved sound effects and so much more. And again, if you are interested in working on Semko, you can find all the details down in the description. And yeah, this was the progress of the last 9 to 10 months. It does not feel significant, but I'm happy regardless. And I'm especially looking forward to the next devlogs and shorts. And to be honest, I hate it not uploading more regularly, but I will try my best to improve that, especially now where I have the opportunity to focus a bit more on visuals and polishing, which is usually better for content instead of me fixing endless bugs and rebuilding Unreal for the 10th time in a row. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye bye.